Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and in this episode of Tips for First-Time Judges, we're going to tackle ability scores. Alright, so as I said at the beginning, we are going to tackle ability scores. I love to talk about the things that cause the most hand-wringing for new judges to DCC, and so ability scores is definitely one of the ones at the top of the list. So, before we get into it, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe, comment as well. All of those things bump me up in the algorithms. You're increasing my stats by doing those things. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers, and the only way I can do it is through you. It doesn't cost you anything to like or subscribe, so please, if you can, do those things. Additionally, if you want to support Breaker Press Games further, another way that you can support is to pick up one of our zines through the Breaker Press web store. Currently available for pre-order is Sorceress Rites of the Elements. These will ship this week. I know I said that last video that they were going to ship at the end of the next week, which would have been last week, but they had run out of this brown craft paper that I like so much. And so they are supposed to be done on Tuesday, and I will start shipping at the end of the week. While you're at the Breaker Press web store, pick up any of our other adventures or t-shirts or whatever. It all helps keep the machine going. Additionally, if you want to support even further than that, the absolute best way that you can support Breaker Press Games is by becoming a member on Patreon. Now, you can become a free member. That's always awesome. But if you become a free member and you're watching the work-in-progress content for all the different Kickstarters that we're about to ship, what have you, and you're liking what we're making, become a paid subscriber. Those that pay at $5 and above get something in the mail every month, such as last month's reward was the Guardian class guide. This is a variant of the Warrior that is able to lend their level to somebody's AC. So if you're level 2, you can bump up somebody's AC by 2 because you are guarding them. You can also share your luck, which is relevant in DCC Stennard, my Grimdark Survival Horror setting, because there are no halflings to share luck with. Additionally, in various months, there are also pamphlet encounters like Cacophonous Bandits. My players just faced off against these bandits, and I have to say, my players were very harsh on these bandits. It was very sad. It was very sad. Yes, if you like this type of content, come into your house every month. Become a subscriber at $5 and above to the Breaker Press Patreon. All right. Finally, if you want to support other ways, you can always pick up Breaker Press content through Goodman Games, through Exalted Funeral, Noble Knight, Drive Through RPG, itch.io. And one last thing that I should sales pitch is that you can, through your FLGS, pre-order The Protectorate of Genulane through a partnership between Breaker Press and Goodman Games. This adventure is now available and is now available for pre-order, shipping in June. But I got a message from a guy in Calgary that was super excited that he was able to order this through his FLGS. So if you know that shipping is the blockade between you and buying this adventure from me, you can get it through your FLGS. Pre-order it now. Okay. Enough sales pitch. Let's talk about ability scores. Now, I'm going to begin with a quote straight out of the DCC rulebook, because once again, and this is something I said in the last video, DCC has its own design principles, its own ethos that are very important. So, in DCC RPG character creation, you always roll 3d6, you always roll and apply the scores in that same order, you do not roll more dice and drop the lowest die, you do not use a point-based buy system, and you do not assign ability scores in any order other than that defined above. That is very clearly laid out, and it is a design principle, but it is also the most likely thing for people to buck. And why do they do that? Well, if you're coming from 5e or Pathfinder, you may find that system of generating stats as being draconian. But 5e is a heroic game with superhero characters. Now, let's say you're coming at things from something completely different. You're coming from old school D&D, you like BX or old school Essentials. It may feel more flexible on this with those systems, even though they start off at 3d6, but do offer other variants. But part of the reason why those systems have to have a greater level of flexibility is because they use something for their character classes called prime requisites. You can't be a magic user if you don't have an intelligence of a certain amount. You can't be, XYZ character class unless you have a stat that goes along with that character class that is at a certain level. DCC does not have that. You can be a thief with a agility of 5. You can be a wizard with an intelligence of 5. So understand that this is a very particular point of view and approach to game design. Now, even with certain modern systems that are similar to DCC, you will see that it's different. Stats are even more important in Shadow Dark, for example, because they range from -4 to +4 in their modifiers, which makes an 18 even more superhuman and a 3 even more crippling. Because if you have a -4 every time you try to do something with that particular statistic, that makes a bigger difference than a -3. So understand that DCC is none of these games, and it comes back to these words right here. Right here. You're no hero. And that is not just a statement about the fact that your character is not meant necessarily to be a good guy. Beyond that, DCC, you start as a 0-level peasant for a reason. It is a design philosophy. It is an approach to RPGs that you are an average Joe as opposed to being a hero or a superhero. So, now, Joseph Goodman does acknowledge that judges are going to buck that system. I am going to say, from my perspective, and this is my advice on the matter, is that your players will not appreciate a +1 modifier until they have lived a life with a perfectly average warrior or a thief with a limp. Let your PCs struggle and triumph over adversity through luck and wits and not numbers on a sheet. These numbers on this poor dead 0-level character are not what defined this character. What defined this character more so was their occupation and how the player approached this character in the game. It's less about stats and more about what the character does. So, that being said, that is my feelings on stats. Now, I'm going to add one last thing, because this is something that was on DCC Rocks today, or yesterday, that I thought is worth noting. So, some people will look at the DCC stats, and even if they read those words from Joseph Goodman having to do with ability scores and 3d6 down the line, they're going to feel this inclination that their players need to have higher stats, particularly once they level up. And I will tell you that as your characters level up, their abilities all level up with them. They do not need higher stats. In fact, I've said in other videos, randomization is the great equalizer. And this is so important to, once again, the ethos of DCC and the design philosophy of DCC. So, the other thing that you should note is that a lot of the adventures, I know the ones that I write, and I know that other adventures that other designers write, that write directly for Goodman Games as opposed to my third-party content, will include things in the adventure. You pick up this item or pry out this gem, and one of your stats goes up and one of your stats goes down, or something happens at the end of the adventure and you can juxtapose stats. There are all these different things that happen in adventures that already allow for certain things to change and shift, that when you combine that with also giving your characters increases at every level or what have you, as I've seen some people espouse on DCC Rocks, yes, you can do whatever you want at your own table, but understand that the designers that are designing these adventures are already thinking about that for you. So keep that in mind, because otherwise you might have power creep that goes out of control. Now, if you are writing your own content, I am going to encourage you strongly to, instead of considering just auto bumping up stats as you level up and things like that, write it into the adventure. The other thing is DCC, there is a tagline that gets used all the time: quest for it. And what does quest for it mean? Well, I can do a whole video. In fact, it's been encouraged that I do a whole video on quest for it. Thank you, Trevor. But understand that the idea of quest for it is that if a player feels that they need to have something that is higher, like a higher value stat, that they should go on a quest in order to acquire the thing or appease this patron or, their deity or whatever, in order to get that higher stat. Now, I will say that, in fact, in the Protector of Genuine, there are things that do exactly that, because this is a spiritual journey. It is a quest for one character in order to, go through like a training montage. So those types of things exist in this adventure. So think about that before you just start auto bumping people's stats up. Understand that the designers are already thinking about how to do this inside of the constraints of the adventure. So, with all that being said, before I end this video, I want to remind people that a tragedy across the Midwest is still taking place. Next up, I am going to be at the Sanctum in Racine in 2 weeks on April 20th. In Racine, Wisconsin, at the Sanctum. I am super excited to. It's a fantastic store. I'm excited to do an in-store there. 2 days later, I will be at Games Plus in Mount Prospect, just outside of Chicago. And I will be hitting their DCC night on Monday night, and I am super excited about it. The week after that, I will be up in Bloomington, Minnesota, in order to go to DaveCon in celebration of the life and works of Dave Arneson, and I will be running the Goodman Games booth. So come up, say hello, buy some stuff, and then hit up my games. There's still a couple of seats open in both my Friday night and my Saturday night sessions. And then I think after DaveCon, I might take a month break, because then after that will be Origins. So, in June. All of that being said, thank you for supporting indie games and indie game designers. This is Nick from Breaker Press Games, signing off. You guys all have a fantastic week.